Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for The Walking Dead Dead City, Season 1, Episode 1, the beginning of Negan and Maggie's next chapter. I'll admit that at first, the moment this was announced, a long, long time ago during the end of The Walking Dead, I had a little bit of trepidation, and I think it's just because
I think a lot of
yeah.
people did.
Walking Dead burnout was sort of a big thing at that point. There was a lot of the final season, and more importantly, there was just like 30 characters. It was too much. It was too overloading. This was like a palate cleanser for me. I really enjoyed this a lot more than sort of my initial thought was gonna be. Like, it was focused, it was a little bit smaller, but I really appreciated that.
No, I really like that it was a very sort of pared down cast because by the end of The Walking Dead, I mean, we're in the Commonwealth, there's 50,000 people there.
Yeah.
It was such a huge, huge
Yeah.
cast that it was really it was getting away from them, in my humble opinion,
Yeah.
where it was there was too many characters, not enough wrap up. It was all over the place. That going into this, I was like, okay, it's just Negan, it's just Maggie. We know that these two have a very deep past
Yes.
with each other. When we last saw the two of them sitting down, where he gave her his apology, and it felt very sincere. And I do feel that he has been on this redemption tour and apology. He gave this apology, and she was just like, listen, I can see that you're trying, but I can't forgive you,
Yeah.
which makes the most sense, where she's just like, I can't forget,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to move forward, but there's some things in life you just can't
Yeah.
walk back, and you can never walk this back. But we're just gonna move forward with that knowledge that you have apologized. I can't get over it, but maybe we're not gonna try to kill each other right now.
That is the important thing for this show. That plus, I think you can get into this without really seeing all the end of The Walking Dead. Like, if it was too overwhelming for you, you can dive into this. You'll mostly get the sense of everything that's important. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, that's the thing, is if you don't know what happened between Negan and Maggie and her husband Glenn and everything with the baseball bat, it was actually explained in this
Yeah.
episode. So if you haven't seen The Walking Dead for whatever reason, you can still watch this, which I thought was really cool,
Yeah.
that they have found a way to make it accessible to other people. Everything that's going on with Mandalorian or anything like that, that you don't necessarily have to have seen Star Wars to know what's going on.
Well, we are going to zombie walk our way through the rest of this episode, kind of like AMC sent like real zombies out into the streets of New York yesterday in some very bizarre marketing attempt for this show.
Good for them.
Okay, so before we get any further into all of this, be sure to check out our Patreon. We have a link in the description below for that. And we are going to talk so much about The Walking Dead over there with various theories, thoughts on this season. And that's in addition to our coverage of Silo on Apple TV Plus, another
Yep.
insanely good dystopian show. We're also doing Black Mirror this week, which is really just incredible so far.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you're not watching Black Mirror,
Yeah.
you should be. And we have a video over on our Patreon about Silo from Black Mirror. We're gonna have videos up on Dead City every week, so make sure you check out that Patreon.
All right. Thank you guys so much. And now let's get into the basic premise of this show, which for a 6-episode show kind of makes sense. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Herschel has been taken. Maggie needs to find a way to get Herschel back. Turns out the guy who did this capturing is the Croat, a guy who has a history with Negan. So therefore, it makes sense that Maggie would need to go and seek out Negan to try to make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, her initial thinking of it is that she thinks that because this guy was under Negan, that Negan has some sort of either control or sway with him or something. And what's the most strange about it is that they've brought in somebody to play this character that wasn't actually on The Walking Dead. They're not someone that we've seen before. And with them sort of being as crazy as Negan is saying that he is, oh, this guy was, he was tough. And, you know, there was a lot of kind of crazy people with me. Obviously, Negan was one of them, but
Yeah.
him kind of being like, yeah, you know, there was a couple of like real oddballs with me that weren't very controllable. It's like, well, wouldn't we have seen him or heard of him in some sort of way? I kind of wish that they had picked somebody who we had seen as a savior that maybe could have been built into something bigger. It's just like, this guy was there and we never saw him and he's as crazy as you say. Then it's like, where was he?
He's a lost season 2 character. He's, you know, he's somebody who was just on the plane and we never saw him until a little bit later on down the road. And I think, I mean, it's a clear sign that they didn't know, obviously, they were going to be doing this until pretty late into The Walking Dead. And they sort of had to figure out, okay, what are we going to do at this point? Like, you know, Dwight's over on Fear of the Walking Dead, and I wouldn't want Dwight in this role anyway. I like Dwight too much for that. But the Croat, I mean, sure, he can be an interesting enough character. They showed his villainy towards the very end of this episode, and I'm just like, okay, that's all well and good, but really, I'm here for Negan and I'm here for Maggie just because their relationship is so complicated.
Man, hearing Maggie do that whistle, it just sent chills down my spine. I mean, like when we first met Negan and everything that was going on The Walking Dead with him, like that whole scene with all of them on the ground,
Yeah.
they really played that out in what felt like real time. Like that scene went on for like 15 minutes. It was horrifying.
Yeah.
So to hear her give that whistle and tell Negan, like, listen, this guy who was under you has Herschel, and so therefore I need you. But I mean, Negan has said, I can't really help you with this guy. This guy wasn't really that controllable. But at the same time, I'm going to call a little BS on that, because if this guy is using the whistle and he still feels like kind of connected to the Saviors, then he should feel some sort of connection to Negan.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call, and I'm also going to put my tinfoil hat here on
All
for a
right.
minute, because I have some thoughts about Negan in general in this episode, because I know at first he's just like, you know, I don't know if I can help you, but it's like, okay, Negan, you don't really have anything else to do. Like, let's be honest here. Like, the marshals are after you. You're just sort of laying low. You don't have that much of a purpose. You're just playing hard to get in this episode at times, because here is Maggie showing up, somebody who you're forever going to be indebted to in a lot of different ways, even if you don't want to admit it every single second of the day. And she's giving you this chance. You get to go out, you get to explore, you get to do something. We all know Negan wants to have a little bit of a piece of the action. Like, the only thing that seems to be hard about this whole process is him having to leave Jenny behind. And it seems like Jenny is someone who he's been sort of caring for this past little while.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know a lot about her except that her father ended up being a walker, and then since then she just stopped talking, but she had asked to be like, can I go with you, sort of thing, and that he has just been taking care of her. And it looks like the deal sort of that they've struck at this point is that Maggie's sent Ginny back to be like taken care of by her people, and then Negan's gonna help her get Herschel back, who is definitely older than he was. There is a time jump.
Yeah.
So there are some questions from The Walking Dead of like, where is Annie? What happened to Annie? What happened to their kid?
Yeah.
Those questions have not been answered. Maggie did ask him and he just looked away. So I'm kind of like, are they going to explain what happened to his wife and his unborn kid? I think they will, but it doesn't look great.
No, I think it's a situation here where they want to slow drip some stuff throughout these 6 episodes, but I'm also sort of sitting here and being like, is 6 episodes enough? Because there is a part of me that is like, okay, I'm glad this is not 24 episodes. I'm glad this is not
Oh my
16
goodness,
episodes,
no.
because I think to have it be focused, more intimate, this is the way to get a lot more viewers back to the franchise. Like, I think that is really smart. However, could we not do 8? Could we not do like something? The Last of Us was 9. Can we not do 9? Just give us a little bit more of this world so you have a chance to give some explanation on these things. Maybe give us a couple little flashbacks. here and there, because otherwise, I don't know if we're actually going to get them. Like, I'm sure we'll get an answer that you're talking about, that it might just be like exposition or dialogue. I feel like this is going to be very contained and very much like what's happening in the present in this particular place.
Like, my hope with these 6 episodes, because, yeah, The Walking Dead with their 24 episodes, I mean, like, stop. Like, reel yourself in.
Yeah.
It's too long. And, we didn't need to have every episode have a rinse and repeat of the same things, where walkers are attacking, they're going to get out of it, and they're on a supply run. That doesn't need to happen here. So, condensing it down to 6 episodes, I mean, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that all these episodes are going to be like this episode, where it was way less about the walkers. Like, yeah, they were there, and yeah, they were posing more of a threat because they're in Manhattan. There's, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them. Like, when they're in big groups like that, they do feel like they're more of a threat. But like, it's more about them, and it's more about the survivors and the people. And that's the thing. I hate to compare it to The Last of Us, but that's the thing that The Last of Us is doing remarkably well, that it's not about the infected, really, where they're pushing the infected in every single episode. It's like, they're there, and we do get to see them here and there, but it's about the people and taking time to get close to the people. And that's what The Walking Dead did really well in its first seasons, and kind of lost that in the later seasons. But they seem to be getting back to the roots here. Much smaller group of people, more focused on the people, less about the threat of the walkers, because they've been living with this for so long now.
Yeah, and I feel pretty confident. The walkers are going to come. Like, it's not something that we have to rush into.
Oh, we saw them in the trailer. They're coming. They're evolving.
The setting of New York City in particular, like, it's a very cool place to put this. I think that's one of the big draws, is just that, we've been out on, like, farms and rural communities, and I know Walking Dead had a couple of things here and there that are a little bit more urbanized, but having it in one of the most densely populated places in all of America, where you can really imagine, and there is a line, I guess walkers are falling from the sky now. Yes, they can fall from the sky here. You can have a skyscraper full of them. You can play around with the idea of how you introduce them, what the threat level is, but you're also being like, okay, we can be patient with it, because people know that we can do zombies. Like, that's not even a challenge for us anymore. The real challenge is how we can sort of build up the world around them.
It was nice to feel like these 6 episodes have a bigger budget than we really saw by the end of The Walking Dead. Like, they did a really, really good job with making, New York City look like it's, broken and falling apart, dystopian, abandoned, even though it's not. Like, they did such a good job with it. Like, I felt it. Very big, overwhelming. Like, it was amazing.
Let's talk about one character who I am fairly close to being all in on through one episode. And this is my guy Armstrong here, who is a marshal played by Gaius Charles, who, if you guys don't know, you have seen him before. He has been in a lot of things. Friday Night Lights, Grey's Anatomy. Mm-hmm. He was in Pan Am, a show that,
Man, I love that show. So good.
Yeah, which, hey, that introduced Margot Robbie to all of you people, so be grateful that Pan Am existed. But, like, he's done a ton of stuff, and to have him sort of come in this world, he's, he is playing sort of this martial character who has his own sort of rule set that he's going to follow, and he's sort of one of these interesting people where he's sort of an adversary, but it's also sort of like he's just doing his job, and his job is Negan is a very bad person.
Sort of. I mean, yes, he's done a lot of bad things, and this marshal's like, yeah, he killed some important people, but we haven't actually heard what happened on Negan's side of things yet, because he did say it's not exactly what you think it is. Like, this guy's just going off of, these people are dead, and so he needs to be brought in, where Negan's like, there's more context to this. And of course, we don't know what that is yet, but I mean, yeah, it was interesting that there even is a marshal, but having Armstrong there brought a really important conversation between Negan and Maggie that I think has kind of been a long time coming. And I'm not saying that these two situations are the same,
Yeah.
but where, Negan is kind of like, yes, I killed Glenn. He was a husband. He was a father. He was a lot of things to a lot of people. But you have also killed people who are husbands and fathers. And then there is a moment where she has a choice to kill the marshal who was like, I'm a father, I'm a husband. And she looks over at Negan after that conversation and decides not to kill him. I was just like, okay, I understand why Maggie decided not to do that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't undo the other things that she has done. And she's talked about some pretty dark situations that she's been in
Yeah.
that she either participated in or didn't help anyone through in the past. But it's not on the same level to me to what Negan did, because Negan feels like during that whole scene, he had enjoyment in it.
Yes.
He had enjoyment in his power over Glenn, over everyone, down on their knees. There was a smile on his face. That is not the same, context of how Maggie is feeling when she's in these situations where there's like desperation or survival that's behind it. She does not take joy in it. So I think I get what Negan is saying, but he's not putting any real like context beside it to be like, these situations are not the same.
Let's compare this to something a lot more trivial than obviously what happens on The Walking Dead here. Because we cover Big Brother on the channel a lot. And what happens in Big Brother is, you evict
I'm
people.
dying to know this comparison.
Okay, this is where this is going, is that a lot of times when you evict somebody on Big Brother, if you sell it in the right way, when you're just like, this is just a part of the game. We have to evict somebody. This was a strategic move. It was not personal. You send them out, and they may still be more inclined to vote for you at the end of the game if you're a juror, because it's ultimately, okay, you did what you had to do in the game, versus you evict somebody in Big Brother and you're like, you loser.
Yeah,
I schooled you. I'm so much better than you. I'm a dance on your grave as you go out the door, goodbye. And then you don't get the vote at the end of the game. And you're like, why didn't you vote for me? You're bitter. And it's just like, no, you made them feel stupid when they left the game. You can't do things like this and exhibit this level of behavior and expect a reasonable response on the other side of it. Negan, he monologued his whole way through everything when Glenn was killed. Like, it is a very, like you said, an apples to oranges situation.
And he laughed at his pain after he hit him that first time. Like, there was enjoyment, and it is not the same.
No, and maybe Negan eventually that will be a part of like his process down the road, is sort of realizing that more. But I think one of the hardest things for any human to do is look themselves in the mirror and be honest with themselves. And I'm just talking about like normal people. That's really hard. Imagine if you're Negan, of all people, how hard that must be. And I'm not sympathizing with him, but I do think that it's going to be a tough road for him to ever get to the point where it's like, I was doing these things because I like them, sort of like Walter White at the end of Breaking Bad, except Negan has the capacity to change, I think, in a way that Walter did not.
Absolutely. He needs to have, I think, that kind of honesty. Like, I don't think that Maggie's never going to forgive him. I mean, we even saw her having flashbacks to that whole scene in her head of everything that happened with Glenn, with Negan, and we know that she relives that like on the often in her head. It's something that will never leave her. So she's never going to forgive him. But like we saw at the end of The Walking Dead, there was sort of this, okay, I'm not going to forgive you, but we're going to move forward. And now we're sort of back in this situation again where, I can kill you at any moment. It's like, okay, I thought you guys moved past this, but you didn't. So what is the missing thing there that, he gave you the apology. You were like, man, I never thought I was going to get that apology, but here we are. You're giving it to me. Maybe she needs the more honest approach of it to just be like Walter White. I did it because I liked having power. I liked having power over you. I liked having power over your group. I liked having power over my own group. Like, I was an angry guy of everything that happened, and it was all mixed into this, and it is not the same situation.
I hope we get there. Like, I don't know if we're going to get there over these next several episodes or not, but I hope we get there eventually. It's just, for now, I'm just happy coming out of this episode feeling like, okay, this is the ride I want to get on, and this is the journey that I want to explore moving forward. Because, like I said, zombie overload. There's been so much of The Walking Dead over time that it was very hard to convince myself in advance that this was going to be a really, really good show, and I think it has a lot of promise. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I think we still need to know more about, like you've said, the past, about sort of where these dynamics are going to go, what would happen in the event that, Herschel does get rescued, where this story could go. But I feel pretty satisfied and hopeful right now.
Yeah, because I mean, it's sort of set up like what was happening with the saviors, that, they're just going to keep coming over and over again. That's what they've said. Oh, we're going to take Herschel so that, we know that every month you're going to give us what we want. We're going to take your grain. We're going to take your people. We're going to take your resources. You're going to pay us a tax, just like the saviors. He's basically just running the same group.
Well, we'll see if that continues moving forward. But be sure to check out our Patreon. The link is in the description below for content on The Walking Dead, plus, of course, Silo, From, Black Mirror.
Yeah.
So much great stuff happening. And thank you to all of our patrons who are supporting us. We appreciate it. And we'll see you here next time.